zechut of the brother, and everybody else. I wish him and them a tremendous hatzlacha. Also to our great friends, Karen and our friend Mike, who have been really amazing in their support of the yeshiva. To our friends in Korea, and by the way, yes, our friends in Korea, welcome everybody on board. You can again follow us on Instagram. If you do Yeshiva Etzion, on Facebook as well, on YouTube. If you have questions, you can reach us at rabbigaon@gmail.com and check the yeshiva as well. This shiur is also dedicated to the refuah shlema of the child Chana Aliza bat Shendel Nechama. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu shlach refuah shlema b'kol rana b'evareh v'shasa gidea elna refana la parashat Vayigash. Parashat Vayigash, the Zohar explains to us that the root of the word, because you know in Hebrew we have roots of words, we can tell a lot about the meaning and beyond of the word by understanding the root of it. The Zohar says that the root of Vayigash really stems from Nagash. Nagash really means to really collide. Like hitnakshut is a collision. So, and come to teach us here about a great collision between two worlds. But what are we talking about? Which collision are we talking about? What worlds are we talking about? Are we just talking about here a fight between two brothers? Just like who's going to rule the family? Or something greater than that, that it's really hidden like a gem under our eyes and we don't really see what it is? Alright, that's it. I'm done. So, let's go back to Yitzchak. I know we're talking about Yaakov, we're talking about Yosef, we're talking about all the other people, but let's go back about Yitzchak. Let's go back to Yitzchak Avinu. So, when Yitzchak Avinu wanted to go to Mitzrayim, to Egypt, HaKadosh Baruch Hu revealed himself to him in a prophecy, and he said to him, don't go down to Egypt, stay in this land of which I will tell you, which means the Holy Land, the Israel land, the only land for the Jews. And when he says Shechon Ba'aretz, Shin Chaf Vav Nun, Shechon Ba'aretz, they're learning Bereshit Rabbah, the Medrash in Bereshit Barabah, they learn that Yitzchak Avinu by this commandment, because Shechon means a commandment, dwell in this land. Two different tasks in Eretz Yisrael. We always look at this like, okay, just stay here, don't go down, etc. But Chazal learned from that something greater. Shechon ba'aretz, so they learn Aseh Shchuna be'eretz Israel. In other words, make the land of Israel inhabitable. I mean, you plant trees, work the land, build trees, build roads, build houses, and so on and so forth. Something else is Shchon et hashchina ba'aretz. Dwell, the holy providence, in the land as well. Bring about some spiritual, higher spiritual quality to the land as well. So from that, Yitzchak Avinu, when God told him Shchon ba'aretz, right? So Yitzchak Avinu learned that he has two different jobs. One is materialistic, and the other one is spiritual. Those two tasks really require two different talents who seem completely removed from each other at 180 degrees, like east from west, or north to south, or so on. It's very, very difficult to find this kind of qualities or talents in one person. It's very difficult. So therefore, Yitzchak understood that in order to accomplish those missions that he was given by God, God made it possible for him. And how did he make it possible for him? He gave him two kids. He gave him two boys. And those two boys, as we all know, were different from one another. Different from one another. And as we could say, of course, there were really opposing qualities. Esau was the man of the field, and Yaakov was the man, the inside man. He was the man of the inside the house, spiritual person. So he understood that Esav will deal with with all the aspects that it talks about building the land, making the land better, trees, gardens, houses, roads, etc., etc., etc. And Yaakov, which is going to be a Talmid Chacham, a great scholar of Torah, is going to sit down, is going to learn, and is going to do whatever he needed to be done spiritually in the land. And only when he was about to give the blessing, which he wanted to give, the blessing that he wanted to give Esav, and if you look at the blessing of Esav, it is completely materialistic. And he said to him, Mital HaShamayim u'bnei shamnei ha'aretz v'rov dagan v'tirosh. It's all about materialistic things. It's all about materialistic abundance, a lot of stuff. Rov means a lot. And it also gave him a certain, it gave him a blessing for being able to rule and to have the power to implement. That's why you need the power to implement those things. And that came in the bracha, Ya'avducha amim ve'ishtachavu lecha leumim. Nations would work for you and nationalities will bow down to you. And the bracha that was given to Yitzchak in Ruach HaKodesh, all of a sudden he sees that it was what's supposed to be for Esav. He sees it's going to Yaakov and not to Esav. So from that, Yitzchak understood that those two tasks of building the land in terms of materialistic aspects of it and increasing the spiritual growth of the land, they're going to be done only by Yaakov alone, in other words, by one man, and that's why Mishamayim, from heavens, that directed everything, that it would fall to Yaakov and not to Esav. And in a way, Esav is not really connected to the missions in which we're giving not only to Yitzchak but also to Avraham Avinu. He has other job, but it's not really what they had in mind. And he also understood that at the end, it should not be a separation in Am Yisrael between, or there should not be a gap between the chomer, materialistic aspects, and spirituality. They should coexist. And there's no contradiction that you can only do this and not do the other. Well, of course you know that when we learn the Parashat, it all has to do with you as well. And I think you might see, maybe, where we're heading. But which of course is a mission for us. All Am Yisrael together, on all the aspects, have to take part in the mission. And that's very similar to what we have in terms of families, and we'll get to families later on. Yitzchak, what was Leilui Nishmat Hu, Motek?
Avram Yehuda ben Devorah.
Leilui Nishmat Avraham Yehuda ben Devorah. So, Lema'aseh, at the end, it was somewhat divided. And those missions were divided between two different tribes, or two different brothers, again. And Shevet Yehuda, and what we call Shevet Yosef. Now, if we're going to understand that, all of a sudden it would make a lot of sense. Why did the brothers get very angry at Yosef based on his interpretation of his own dreams? But we'll see it, maybe. So from Shevet Yehuda, from the tribe of Judah, well, we know that David HaMelech, King David, came out. And David HaMelech and Shevet Yehuda represents the Sfera of Malchut, of kingship, which is our world. And our world is the purpose of the world is really fulfilling of all the needs that we have and so on and so forth, what the body needs and wills and urges and so on and so forth. And Yosef, the part of Yosef, symbolizes Sfirat Yesod. Yesod means the foundation. And that Sfirat Yesod collects all the abundance that comes from above, God's gift to us, abundance. And if you look at the 10 Sferot, it would make a lot of sense why it looks like a funnel. And everything goes down to the concept of Yesod, and then from there, a very short trip to Malchut. And the Malchut is what determines how much of that Shefa, how much of this abundance actually would enter our own lives. It's very important to understand. Everything from above comes to Yesod. From Yesod, he pushes it down to Malchut, and then from there to our life, it determines, of course, based on what we do. And nobody from us, by the way, nobody but you. Now, the amount of abundance that will come and enter your own personal life is determined by no other than yourself. No one else will determine how much Shefa Eloki, divine abundance, will come into or penetrate your life. You're the one who's controlling the faucet. Open and close, it's all up to you. What you decide, what do you decide to do, and what you are willing to do for the cause. It's up to you. Now, of course, you could see from here that if you feel that you don't have a lot or you don't get enough, many times we'll look at, first of all, your actions. Look at what you do. And many times you might have a lot and you just don't realize it. We always think that a lot and a shefa, abundance and bracha and blessing always comes with the amount of zeros we have in the bank. They ain't necessarily so. Because look at your child. Isn't that a tremendous divine abundance to have a child? Maybe we don't see it right, but you decide how much will come from it and how would it come and enter your own life. You're the one who's sitting in the valve. Now, because that abundance depends on the combination of the Malchut, which is the spirituality. And you should know that in spirituality, there is no oppression. Nobody would oppress you to become spiritual. I could oppress you by making you pay taxes, but I cannot make you believe. Today we spoke about the auto de fa, the notorious Inquisition practice to burn the Jews at a stake. And those 1,000 people and throughout the Inquisition, and mainly towards the end of the time of the Jews in Spain, were chose to be burned on the stake rather to change their faith. Nobody can force you to believe. I can give you all the money in the world, you're not going to become a believer. That's a choice that you make. And based on the choice, you all of a sudden see the presence of God in your life. And that collision that we have, between those two worlds, between the physical world and between the spiritual world, is in a way the collision between two opposing urges. The urge to connect with the Creator, to connect with God, which in a way that's what the urge of the soul to do, is always come back to its source, which in a way, in our physical terms will mean death. Our soul wants to go out. So the urge to connect to God, of course there are other ways to connect to God besides dying. But that's what the neshama does, and the urge of the body to survive. Because the body understands once the neshama goes out, once your soul goes out, you're dead. So the body will do anything. Sometimes your body will bribe your neshama, will bribe your soul, just so it would stay. And the problem becomes when you are spiritually bribed. Very hard to get off the hook. Very hard to get off the hook. So you need to make sure that your soul gets very, very gets very well protection and filters on your neshama, on your soul, and so on and so forth, right? And you need to understand that there is a certain balance that you need to create in your life. So I'm going to tell you, for example, I'm just kind of skipping, but I have to tell you that because I might forget. You work for whatever amount of hours a day, 8 hours a day, and so on and so on, which is all for your body. What are you doing for your soul? When you have a free time, are you going to go on a vacation to Adirondacks, or are you going to come to Yeshiva to learn? What are you doing for your neshama? How are you keeping it balanced? And what are you bribing? Oh, neshama, don't worry, honey. I'm going to take you. I'm going to see a lot of mountains. God is in the mountains. God is here all the time. Two people learn Torah. Two people learn Torah. Divine presence comes down to listen to the words of Torah. You don't have to go to the Rocky Mountains. I would love to go to the Rocky Mountains. But you don't have to go to the Rocky Mountains to see God. It's right here, right now, among us. Especially if you're driving a Nissan Murano or one of those urges, car. You'll drive a GX, I hear you. So when we feel that we are stuck spiritually, it's a sign that we need or must fulfill our spiritual urges immediately and only. When you feel you're stuck spiritually, I don't feel anything. I pray and I don't feel any elevation. It means that you really need to put yourself not in a rehab center, but a whatever, just the opposite of that. A rehab of materialistic and into a complete immersion of spirituality. Because that's why you feel stuck. It's stagnant. It's not moving anywhere. And when you are dealing only with your physical urges and you're not taking care equally, because you are a dual entity, when you don't deal with that and it's only physical, so basically what happens, you are in a disconnect from the sphera of Yesod. You disconnect from the sphere of Yesod. And as a result of that, you are in a disconnect from the divine abundance that comes to this world. And therefore, the only way to connect with that again, you would need a miracle. Nes. Now, the word nes in Hebrew has many meanings, depends on how you use it. Nes could be a flag. So when you go like this, you need to start waving flags. You need to be a flag waver. But also, lanus means to run. Nasu al nafsham. So you need to run. And you need to run from where? You need to run from your nature into a different realm altogether. From the way that you used to operate all your life, to run away from the sensation of I have to sacrifice, and I'm sacrificing and I'm giving up. And I'm sure you sometimes feel up, Rabbi, you telling me that I don't give enough to come to Yeshiva? You know how much time I have to give up? I had other choices to do anything. You don't understand. I'm offering you a platform to connect to God. You are providing yourself a platform to run away from God. So you have to run away from fear. You have to run away from anger. You have to run away from where you are right now and find a higher level, because the waves of tsunami are coming at you and you're feeling an existential threat coming your way. You need to run to higher ground. So that's what it is. You need a miracle. You need to elevate yourself higher. To elevate yourself and to find a different way in which will help you create a change in your life. In the way you're doing things, in the way you're looking at things, in the way you're experiencing life itself. You got to change it. Now this is what Yehuda is doing. Yehuda stands in front of Yosef and is willing to sacrifice himself. Yosef is, as far as he knows, is a king and he can order him to be executed. So he's willing to sacrifice himself, and he's not only that, and I love the way Yehuda comes to him. He says to me, Bi Adoni, you wanna talk, you talk to me. Talk to me. I don't care what will be the consequences. I know what is right, and if you want something, you talk to me. He's willing to sacrifice himself, he's willing to elevate himself above the instinct that we all have. So talk to me, talk to him. Reuben he's the Bechor. You talk to Reuben, I'm just here, I'm a passerby. I'm not waiting for somebody else to do what I know is the right thing to do. I'm getting up and I'm doing that, and that is expected from all of you. Don't hide behind somebody else hoping he will do the job for you. If you see something wrong is happening, stand up and open your mouth. Stand up for what you know is right. Otherwise, I'm telling you, you are not going to be able to look at yourself in the mirror. Because regardless of the macho image that you're going to put to yourself, that by everybody like this, you know that you are a coward. Stand up for what you know is right. Speak up. But do so like Yehuda did. It wasn't disrespectful, but he was very firm, and he did not think about himself. That's what you expect from a leader. First of all, it's not you. Everything else, that's a leader. So when Yehuda is doing that, right, he is overcoming the instinct of survival, and he's putting himself in danger on behalf of his people, of the people, for Yaakov Avinu, for Binyamin that he promised them. Yehuda speaks from the bottom of his heart, from a complete concern and an honest concern to what is going on there. And when he stands over there, he stands mamash be'emunah shlema that this is the way. So when you believe in what you're doing, 100% in what you're doing, you'll be able to portray the message across. But when you don't believe, or you're not able to really convince yourself that that's what needs to be done, how are you going to be able to convince somebody else? So it needs to be clear to you, and you should make an assortment or list of telling yourself what you believe in and what you don't believe in, because you're not going to be able to convince anybody else. And that's what he does. He's able to pass the message through. And that's what the Zohar is teaching us. The Zohar is teaching us the secret of emunah, of belief, the secret of belief. And the secret of belief, of what it's called about believing, is really the connection or the unification of the upper worlds, the spiritual world, with the physical world. You want to take care of that thing? You guys are getting a headache over there. So when you are able to create a connection, and yet together with it a balance between the physical world and the spiritual world, you're not going to have such problems with emunah. Your belief is going to be really solid, on solid grounds. But at that point, Yosef cannot hold himself any longer, and the miracle happens. The miracle happens, and he starts revealing himself to his brothers. So then, when that happens, the Sfera of Yesod cannot really hold itself any longer, and then it releases, and then the miracle comes down to us, the abundance comes down to us, and the Shefa from the upper world is coming to us like a waterfall, like a, great amount and great intensity. Strong, a lot. Shefa. Because you are balanced. So therefore the lack of having things, or the sense of lack of abundance, comes from internal being imbalanced. It is very important to be balanced. In Chinese martial arts, or in the East, they say that you could tell a lot about the person, unless of course you have some problem with your ear or something like this. But and your ability to balance physically is an indicator of your ability to be internally balanced as well. Because if you cannot stand on one leg and stretch your body like that, internally also you're not exactly balanced, because they view the body and the soul as one entity. And of course not now, Rabotai, but in your free time, whatever, not in front of the mirror, of course, try to balance yourself on one leg, stretch one leg to the back, stretch your two hands to the side, and see if you can really do that. And then try to move your leg from this way to that way, kind of a la Bruce Lee kind of a thing, if you know what I mean. Try it, and it will give you a good indicator. And believe me, guys, years ago I did it in yeshiva, and guys didn't believe it, and then they started to do it and said, Those who were, and not necessarily athletic, they were just, they're regular guys and didn't do any workout, but they were internally balanced. They didn't have a problem balancing their body. The other ones didn't. So it's a little trick you can do with yourself. I'm not talking about kinesiology here. So here we have that concept brings us to the words of Rav Kook, Avraham Yitzchak Kook. And it says, as much as a person, the individual person, HaKadosh Baruch Hu created us, body and soul and so on and so forth together, and He gives them, each and every one of us, abilities, and sometimes the abilities oppose one another, right? We have spiritual abilities and we have physical abilities. Each and every one of us, or most of us, really take care of our physical body, but they don't take care of the spiritual body. But you have to understand, as they used to say when I was a kid, I remember they used to say, Nefesh Bria Beguf Bari. It means a healthy soul in a healthy body. Now, I don't know if the healthy soul will cause a healthy body or the healthy body will cause a healthy soul, but you need to have both of them. It's like, who comes first, the chicken or the egg, or one of the things like that. Nefesh Bria Beguf Bari. And the purpose is, of course, is to utilize the abilities of the neshama, of the spirit, with a tremendous power that the neshama, that our soul has, a spiritual power, to really bring about and pull about all the other forces of your body to a certain goal, and as a result of that, and together with that, but the initiator is your spirit, your soul, man's ambition. You could be with one leg and tremendous ambition, you become unstoppable, because the neshama is able to put everything together, holds everything together. But you could have a body of I don't know, what do you call this thing, UFC wrestler, and I'm getting tired of this thing. You could have a body of a UFC wrestler, but if your soul, if you're depressed, for example, and because it's just sliding, you need like a leg or something. So if you won't be able to do something. You could be strong and mighty and powerful, and if you're depressed, you can't move. And if you look at the DSM, you can still one of the signs of depression is a person who cannot emotionally, push himself to do certain things. So the neshama, the soul, has greater powers than the body. The body cannot make the soul do something, but the soul can take the neshama and do something with it. So you need to understand how important it is to take care of your body. And even more so, needless to say, how much important it is, and even more important, to take care of your neshama. And you need to feed it. And what are you feeding your neshama with? Netflix. What are you feeding your neshama with? Of course, with the words of the Torah. Why? Because what do we say? Torah Hashem, what is Torah Hashem? What do we say? Tmima. What else? Meshivat nafesh. It brings your soul back together. You feel tremendous elevation. You could go through whatever. You sit down and you learn a sugiyah, you learn a part of the Gemara, you learn, you make a chidush. You feel alive. You feel alive. And we need to understand that. So that's what Rav Kook says. Rav Kook says that yes, the purpose is the neshama, but also the purpose is to create a balance in between them. And of course, as much as HaKadosh Baruch Hu created that in the individual person, so is in a greater scale in a nation. In our nation, there are people who are talented in one way and people that are talented in the other way, and that's what we call the body of Am Yisrael. It's one unit together, and therefore the whole concept that we have later on in the Torah of the Isur of Lotit Godedu, don't create groups to yourself, you understand how bad it is. I love the cultural diversity. This one wears a fur hat, this one wears a fez, this one wears a jalabia, this one wears a frock. That's nice. But what happens is, as a result of that, we become groups, and that's as far as I'm concerned. And I'm not here in a rabbinical authority. I don't consider myself to be one. But the fact that we have all those groups, we are violating Isur Midoraita. Because do you think a Satmar Chassid would marry his daughter to a Sephardi guy from Morocco? Or would a guy from Yemen marry his daughter to I don't know what, to a Litvak? Those things are not going to happen. And that's a problem. By this division, we are not able to create a penetrating force to finish the task in which we need to do. And that is a problem. Instead of those different qualities are good. Like for example, you have a hand and you have a leg. And there's certain things you do with your legs, and there's certain things you do with your hands. There's certain things you do with your right hand, there's certain things you do with your left hand. Do you ever try to put the blinkers on your car with your right hand? Or did you ever try to drive on the accelerator with your left leg? I did. I had one time a broken leg. I'm telling you, it was not pleasant. How about a shifter in a car when you have a surgery in your hand? I did it also. It's like terror. I mean, terrible. So let everything naturally use its sources, resources, to accomplish a task. The right hand does what the right hand does, and the left hand does, and so on and so forth. You don't think with your feet, you think with your head, I hope. So everything is designated, to certain thing. And we should stop with this division among us. Sfaradim, Ashkenazim, Hasidim, Tziporim, nonsense. Pashut nonsense. We have to stop. It's not good. And I don't appreciate those people who take that and create further division to really promote themselves. Mazeh. I remember when I told you, when I went to my rabbi, I said to him, Tishma, I Sfaradi, me blue blood Sephardi, go all the way back to Spain, I speak Spanish from crying out loud. מה אני צריך ללמוד? שחטא, נלמד חידה, כנסת גדולה. So of course I was stupid. My Rav said to me, one second, you're only going to be a rabbi of Sephardim, you're not going to be a rabbi of Ashkenazi? Some Ashkenazi will come and ask you a question, you say, I don't know. I'm sorry, I didn't learn that. I'm only a rabbi for Sephardim. Mazeh. Yeah, you're right, I was a fool. But I was a part of that thing because it was convenient to me. I realized that I don't need to stand out by creating division. I don't need to stand out at all. This world is not for us to stand on a podium and to feel good about yourself, because there's plenty of work to do. What you need to concentrate on yourself is what needs to be done. And our job is to bring unity to the world. When we say Echad, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, God is one. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says in return to us, Goy Echad Ba'aretz, one nation. Chas v'shalom, God forbid, you want to make God a liar? Look at what Haman said to us. There is a nation who's divided and so on, right? I don't know what Haman said in the Haggadah. Our job is to put everything together, not for us, not for our convenience, but rather for the glory of God. For the glory of Hashem. And we need to understand that. That's the job that we have to do. We have to bring the light to this world, and the light comes in a beam. If you want to shine the light, you need to have a beam. One solid, focused beam. Not mirror on the world. It spreads all over the place. It doesn't light anything. So, that situation, as we say, is also similar to when we can take this concept and apply it to marriage life, to a couple. And in the Haftarah, right, of course, a couple in terms of building a bayit, what we call a bayit ne'eman b'Yisrael. When we say bayit ne'eman, it's not a loyal house. Ne'eman milshun emunah. And if we said before that the secret of emunah is the balance and the unification of both forces, spiritual and physical, so a house that is built on emunah all of a sudden take a totally different meaning. So when the Haftarah talks about what the Navi Yecheskel talks about, V'ata ben Adam kach lecha etz, and you should take a piece of wood. We don't really know yet what it is. You take a piece of wood and write for it LeYehuda u'Levnei Israel, right? Then you should join together. Yehuda and Bnei Israel, you should join. V'lakach etz echad v'katov alav leYosef etz Ephraim v'lechol Beit Israel chaveru. You know, for the other one the part of Yosef also, you guys and all of Israel together, you get united, Manchester United, you know, everybody gets to get united. So we think that, you know what, God is giving Yecheskel a prophecy about 2x4s. You take a 2x4, put them together, take some galvanized nails, just shoot them. That's not what he's talking about. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu is talking about real trees, alive, not wood, trees, etz, trees. And what we are talking about, basically what God is showing Yecheskel, is the following. How to do grafting. The concept of grafting. So when you do grafting, you're taking two different types of trees, and the bottom tree, which is called the kana, the bottom tree is the strong tree, they're able to develop roots and so on and so forth, and then you put on top of that another tree that, given time, they become one solid tree that gives beautiful, beautiful fruit. So the whole purpose of this grafting is to really utilize the special power of each tree or each type of tree to the one goal of providing good, beautiful, edible fruit. So it's to utilize the abilities of one or the other. So if you take the kana, and it's really, as we said, it's a strong tree. And by the way, that's what they do to all citrus trees. They take a tree, it's called chushchash, which has a good root system, and then they put the you know, whatever it is, I don't know, oranges or whatever on top of that, and then you get, because if not, the arrow tree will fall, and you're not going to be able to bear a lot of trees. And you'll see on the bottom, right on the bottom of it, somewhere along the bottom of the trunk, you see a little ring, and that's where they did the grafting. So that's the kana. It's supposed to give you a good, solid root foundation to be able to bring in nourishment and so on and so forth. And the rechev comes on top of that. The rechev or chev rides on the kana and sits on top of that, and that job is to give the fruit. But we need both of them. And the kana and the rechev really need one another. So is a husband and wife. They need one another. They need one another, and without them, nobody can say, oh, this is all because of me. That's why you need two parents. And that's why you need two parents of a man and a woman. Because it's different qualities. When you are going to have only women parents and only men parents, the fruit is not going to be good fruit. I don't care what anybody says. That's what I'm telling you. You need to have a wife, a mother, a female, and a male in order to have good fruit as kids. And you need to understand that you really need both of them. And each one of them is important. So therefore they have the job of hakava, of the grafting together. And that what you need to build it, and then you need to live with peace with one another, and they need to live with unity in one another, and they need to understand that they really must have one another, and the other one is just as important as you are. As a matter of fact, on the contrary, each one in his eyes should see the other one more important than him, as you could see in the halakha. When the halakha tells you that the wife needs to respect her husband more than anyone, and he needs to respect her more than he even respects himself. to understand the importance of the other one, to be able to create this platform. And this is, to understand that, you really need to be wise. You need to be able to see that you cannot be selfish to do those things. And that gives us tremendous, tremendous fruit. Now, when you have this together, as they say, a shefa comes to shefa, or we say money comes to money. So only when you're willing to give, Rabotai, that's when you are going to get. And when you are not willing to give, you are not going to get anything. So your ability to receive depends on your willingness to give. And if you're not, and then you see it more than anything when you're learning Torah. I learn from everybody, but for my students I learn the most. Why? Because to your students you're willing to give from yourself. I don't say, I'm going to keep the knowledge to myself. I'm going to be the wisest man around, and nobody should challenge me. On the contrary, you give, and you give, and you give. And by the fact that you give in, your students ask you a question, and you become wiser. And therefore you become wiser, not because you're so good, but rather because you were willing to give. You became selfless, and that's very important. So to finish this target, or to reach the goal, in our nation, really, as you could see from the very beginning, we'll set in motion those powers, both in the Shvatim of Yehuda and Yosef. When we say Shevet Yehuda was supposed to be the spiritual initiator, and the section of Yosef is really the materialistic aspects of things. And that's why they say, Al ken haya Yosef mashbir le'echav. He was giving them food. He was giving them Shabbat. So that's why when the brothers were angry at Yosef, because they thought that he wants to be their melech, he wants to change the order. And when you're changing the order, when you, instead of being the connector, you are becoming the malchut, becoming the king, guess what? You're going to destroy the whole entire world. And you are betraying so-called whatever God had in mind. And for that, we don't like you. That was the reason they were angry with him. Not because the daddy liked him more. Because he thought he's going to be a king. And they thought, that's what he's saying. You're going to bow down to me. Who do you bow down to? Bow down to either God or a king. That's it. So Yosef was the mashbir. And he was supposed to take care of the physical aspects of our nations. And that's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu sent him to Egypt first, to be able to, as we say, la'achyot amram, to nourish a lot of people. And it says, Asher echya et Yaakov uvanav b'Mitzrayim, right? And it says, lechem lefi ataf. Give it according, when you have 8 kids, you're going to get whatever you're going to get. You're going to have 2 kids, lechem lefi ataf, according to your, you take care of this, can't take this. So as you see by Yoshua. Yoshua bin Nun was from where? From Shevet Ephraim. And Shevet Ephraim, Yoshua bin Nun was the great conqueror that inherited and led the people through the land of Israel. And after him, of course, there was Yerovam ben Nevat, right? And then on Yerovam ben Nevat, the Pasuk said, Ve'aish Yerovam what? Gibor Chayil, Vayireh Shlomo et Anar ki yoseh melachau, and so on and so forth. And what? It says, Vayifkod oto lesevel bet Yosef. And that is in looking, if you want to look further, look at Melachim Aleph, Kings A, verses 11 to 28. But Yehuda really represents the spiritual aspects. It says, and what does it say? Ve'haita Yehuda lekodsho. The Kedusha comes from Yehuda. That's why when they went to Mitzrayim, when they already told Yaakov to Mitzrayim that Yosef is in Mitzrayim, what happened? The Midrash tells us, Midrash in Bereshit Rabbah, Le'atkin lo beit vav. In other words, he understood, Yaakov understood, okay, we have food. Yosef is going to take care of everything, no problem. Hey, Abba Torah. So before I'm going down, I want to make sure that there's going to be a Bet Medrash there in Mitzrayim that I'm going to be able to learn. So who's going to take care of that? Yehuda. So it's not just important for you to go to work. It is just as important to you to learn Torah. If not, you're living all your life in an imbalanced state. So if we understand that you are weak and you cannot really learn for 8 hours as much as you work for 8 hours, לפחות תהיה קבוע. Establish it on a single specific time. Because we did say what? כל הקבוע כמחצה על מחצה דמה. So if you decided to dedicate a time to learn from 8 to 9, from 8 to 10, make sure that if your grandmother gives birth, you don't miss the time. You're coming to learn. That's the time for you to learn. Because let me ask you a question. If you go to work from 9 to 5, would there be any occasion or any reason if your grandmother or your grandfather gives birth, you're going to miss work? You're not going to miss work. Because work became your God. But how about your God? It tells you, come and live by words. This is how important it is to set aside a specific time that you don't care what happened. You don't give it up. You don't give it up. When you're coming to learn Torah in a specific time, you are in a way in Olam Haba. You're in a different realm. In other words, you're dead to this world. You're alive in the spiritual world. You get kochot, you learn, your ability to bring the light to this world. Are you doing it? Are you willing to give an example for other people to do it? It's not just, okay, I'm doing it, shalom aleichem nafshi, I don't really care. You have to encourage other people to come and do that, to be kovea itim la Torah, because when you go to heaven, that's the first question to ask you. Don't tell me you are Ben Torah, you wear a title Ben Torah. If the Torah, if you treat your mother the way you treat the Torah, God forbid and all of us. If you call yourself a Ben Torah, treat the Torah as much as you treat your mother. What are you, an adopted child or something? You need to understand that. We must create a balanced world. And that's what the Rambam says. Now all of a sudden the Rambam makes sense. When you are learning without doing any melacha b'sofa, well, chas v'shalom niyeh listim. You need to create a balanced world. You can't build, if you're going to build a building and the whole building is lopsided, you're not going to be able to build anything. Foundation needs to be level, right, Mr. Constructor? Needs to be solid, needs to be balanced. Then you build a building. It's all about balance. And this is what it is when we are talking about, this is the purpose of our creation. The reason why we came to this world is for that, not only for that. The reason we came, the world was created is for that, for us to do what? Liot borim. Yes, we are almost like God in a way. We create also. And what do we create? We create miracles. And the miracles that create is we turn in darkness into light. Vayi erev, vayi boker. As much as God put the sun in the sky to light, God put us here in this world to light as well. This is our job, to turn night into day, darkness into light, bad into good. Turn bitter into sweet. To go against your natural, inclination of selfishness. To give, not to be afraid. Give without conditions. Give from love. That's what the whole world was created for. We have to do so in a way that is going to be really altruistic, selfless, without the self involved. Give because God gives. Our life is full of collisions and accidents and conflicts. But that attitude is what's going to free us from what we call the Gehenna, from hell of our days. But we live, life sometimes feels like hell. That are you able to turn this place into Gan Eden. That's what Gan Eden was created here. And now we got to bring it back home. And we can do it. If we would not be able to do it, this would not have been our job. We can all do it. But I can tell you this, we cannot do it alone. We have to do it together. And when I tell you that the yeshiva needs you, the yeshiva needs you. The people need you, and you need to be there. I should not be the one who's telling you, listen, I need help. You should be the one who comes and saying, how could I help? And that should be across the board for anything. And Be'ezrat Hashem, this is going to be able to bring the light to this world. And we were able to be metaken, to fix this world. Metaken olam b'malchut Shaddai. And this is what we should say, thanks to Hashem, to give us the opportunity to do so, to be a part in creation. By doing that, we are partners with God in creation. Have a wonderful day, a wonderful Shabbat. And I'm going to tell you the following, don't forget, the fast starts at 6:05 New York time. It starts at 6:05 and it ends at 5:08. So you still have a chance if you don't know that you can get up before that, have your cup of coffee, eat something. And I hope that's going to be, listen, for all we know, if we all accept what we're doing now, maybe there's going to be the last fast that we can have. And from now on, it's going to be just a joy in Hashem and in Torah. But guys, we got to be together. Shabbat.